The prosecutor and the judges, and they're reading these statements that are like, now, is it true that you called the defendant there a fat, ugly piece of shit?
Yes, I did. But can you be unbiased? I think so.
Yeah. Please welcome to the stage America's own Senator Al Franken. Good to see ya. Thanks for being here. Yeah. Nice. You know, it's a little intimidating, I have to say, doing monologue jokes while you're watching. I have to say, I don't care for it.
You know what's interesting is I forgot to bring my hearing aids. And I was getting most of them, but so it shouldn't have been intimidated. It's like,
That's
he's
actually
a
a
young
relief.
man.
You should have told me before. First of all, Chag Sameach. Happy Passover.
Happy Passover to you.
You know, you know what I realized? You know what I realized yesterday? I'll tell you. Rudy Boschwitz, Jewish. Paul Wellstone, Jewish. Norm Coleman, Jewish. Al Franken, Jewish.
Yep.
Tina Smith, not Jewish, but quite a run of Jewish senators in that seat. Not since Chuck Schumer dined alone has a seat in that Jewey.
His qualifies as very Jewish, Schumer's, but no, it was. I was the only New York. When I ran against Coleman, I was the only New York Jew who was born in Minnesota, who grew up in Minnesota.
Huh? In that race.
When I was in that race, yeah.
Interesting. The guy before Boschwitz, I don't think he was Jewish because Wikipedia said he played hockey.
Now that I think about it, none of the Jewish ones played hockey. But Paul Wellstone was an All-American wrestler.
Wow. A Jewish wrestler.
Now
I've heard everything.
I wrestled.
People? You wrestled people?
I wrestled people. I wasn't great. Paul was great. Paul was like in the Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Wow. Well, good for him.
Yeah.
I'm glad. So now you actually write a lot about Paul Wellstone. So I have a copy of your 2003 book, Lies and the Lying Liars, here. And the reason I have it is because I was excited.
I want to talk about lies.
I want to talk about lies, but I also want to talk about the way you talk about lies, because this book was very important to me. I think it was important to a lot of people when it came out. And it was this clarion call about just how malicious and deceptive the right wing had become. And what I was thinking when I realized it's been over 20 years since the book came out is, did you ever imagine it would seem so fucking quaint?
Well, it was interesting because at the time you really weren't. It wasn't common to call someone a liar or use lies, and I said lies and the lying liars who tell them for a reason, because it was meant to be satirical and funny, but calling people liars at that time, even though they were lying up the wazoo, you know, Fox and Limbaugh, and but it wasn't cool to Coulter, those people, and so I did this up at Harvard, and I had 14 students help me with it, and we researched the shit out of it, and it did very well.
One of you mentioned Paul Wellstone, and one anecdote I think about all the time, because I think it's still relevant now, is you talk about this experience of being at Paul Wellstone's memorial.
Yeah.
And this tragic death just days before an election, a kind of group mourning and celebration of who Paul Wellstone was. You're there, you experience it, and then you watch the way it is translated first through the right-wing media, then to the mainstream media, and then even to Democrats. And the reason I think it's still relevant is it seems to be that style of politics has kind of become the only way Republicans do politics, which is to find some event that happens in the world or make one up and say, see, this is who they are. These are terrible people. So can you just talk about what it was like? You were at this thing, and then you watch what happens when it is translated through the right.
Well, everybody's passion was out there. It was in the in the basketball arena, and there were 20-some thousand people, and there was an overflow of people. Not everybody could get in. And Rush Limbaugh, they bust people in. Unions bust people in. That's why they look so, like there were so many people there. And it was there was a point in which one of Paul's friends got up and gave a speech that was a little bit inappropriate, because he says, let's win this election for Paul, and Walter Mondale was going to step in for Paul at the last minute. And that was used against him. And so it was, in the book, I write about this way this was taken by Limbaugh and by Tucker Carlson on, what was he on at that time? I think CNN.
Or MSNBC. He's been on all of them. May have been MSNBC too.
Yeah, no, it was CNN at the time. And these are people who didn't see the memorial. It was an incredibly moving and passionate memorial. And not only did Paul die, but his wife and his daughter and 3 aides. And it was incredibly moving memorial, and yet Limbaugh and the right exploited it. And I think they actually won that seat, and they won the Missouri seat because of it. So it was the chapter in the book that meant the most to me.
The way that you see it, it is sort of a pattern that has played out to this day. And even as you say that, the idea that someone wouldn't say at a memorial for a senator who passed away, we should try to win this for that senator, even saying that that was inappropriate now feels like from another era, given the new levels of inappropriate we see on a daily basis.
Yeah, well, now the lying we see, and that's why lies and liars, at the time you didn't call someone a liar.
Yeah.
That was just not done. But now it's just the opposite way, which is no one doesn't call the other side a liar, especially their side calling us liars all the time.
Look, one lesson I took from just sort of observing you, I bought when Air America Radio started, we started Crooked Media, and one of the things we thought about was that there's been so many efforts to make a kind of progressive counterweight to Fox News. And I remember when you started, when you were there on the first day of Air America Radio, I went and I bought a radio so that I could listen to the very first episode. I did. I was living in New York, and I bought a radio, and I listened to the whole first episode you did, where you had BB Newirth pretending to be Ann Coulter, I believe locked in a closet, if I remember that correctly.
We locked her in her dressing room and turned up the heat.
BB Newirth.
BB Newirth. Well, we didn't lock BB up.
It was radio.
It was radio.
You used coconuts for the horses.
It was radio theater. Yeah. I did not like Ann Coulter, and so that seemed appropriate.
But one thing that I sort of just curious, you are this pugnacious and direct and very funny, very aggressive. You call them liars. You call Rush Limbaugh a big fat idiot. Chapter. You call Bill O'Reilly splotchy. Remember the word splotchy?
He's splotchy on the cover. We got a picture of him.
He was mad about that too.
He was very mad about that. He didn't have makeup on that day or something like that. And we got a picture of him splotchy, and I didn't feel like I needed to fix it up for him.
But so, and then you decide you want to run for Senate yourself. And as a senator, you were very direct and hard-hitting during hearings, but I think it's fair to say that you were less combative, or at least less, not as pugnacious as you were when you were writing from the outs. But yeah. but it's interesting, right? Because I think you were trying to be a version that you thought would be the most effective way for you to be a senator. But in hindsight now, given the jokers and clowns we've got running around, do you feel like you were overcompensated for the fear that you would be called a comedian, or do you still think it was the right way for you to be a senator?
The first week I was in the Senate, I was Sotomayor's hearing, and she said that she had become a prosecutor because of Perry Mason, and that Perry Mason's Hamilton Berger, the prosecutor in Perry Mason, I said, that's odd because he lost every case. And she said, no, he won one case. And I said, well, we'll get that to if we have time at the end. And then I started asking the questions, and then at the end, I had about 2 minutes left, and I couldn't develop a new line of questioning. So I said, what case did Hamilton Berger win? What case did Perry Mason lose? And she said, I don't know. And I said, didn't the White House prepare you? Which just came to me at the time, and but then I got all this kind of press. Can Al Franken stop doing? Can he help it?
Can he help it? Like
And
you
then,
have a
and
little
then
disease.
I went to the to our a committee room where all the, because we do those Supreme Court hearings in a much bigger room, and then we went back to the the judiciary room, and they come in, and Tom Coburn from Oklahoma goes like, actually, Perry Mason lost 2 cases. and then Jeff Sessions says, I like Dragnet. And I said, I worked with Broderick Crawford. Highway Patrol, that's what he said. He said, I love Highway Patrol, and Broderick Crawford. And I said, I worked with Broderick Crawford. And they all went, you worked with Broderick Crawford? Who was a very well-esteemed actor, and older than maybe some of your audience remembers, evidently. But then I was finally legitimate to them.
That was it. That did it.
That
you
was
knew
it.
Broderick
Yeah,
Crawford.
you work with Broderick Crawford.
You didn't really answer my question.
What was your question?
You had a different tone when you were in the Senate than when you were a pundit on the outside. It was a more serious.
Senator.
Of course. Do you think was that the right way for you to be a senator? Or looking back, do you think it might have been okay, given how fucking crazy everything got thereafter, for you to just sort of bring let loose? Yeah. Would you let loose if you were still in the Senate?
Yeah, maybe more, but no, I tried to be the best senator I could be, and I tried to conduct myself. It's a serious job. I mean, you can be funny, and you can do both, but no, I'm happy with the way I conducted myself.
Part of the reason I ask is we're in this fight to try to remind people how bad Trump was, and to explain to people how much worse Trump will be. And we have this problem where the memory of Trump is getting a little less colorful. It's still there, but it's not as bright and vivid as it once was.
Right.
And then we have to explain to people just how dangerous a second term could be. Meanwhile, Joe Biden, he's in the present. People can feel that and see that every day. And I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on how Democrats ought to be talking about Trump, how to make it feel real for people, whether that's people on the outside or what President Biden should be doing or what Democrats should be doing.
Well, I think we have to remind people how he blew it during COVID. How, when he talked about injecting bleach,
Yeah.
I guess up your ass. I guess that's no other way it could be. I think, or directly into your veins.
Well, I think it was supposed to be sort of, kind of like
Okay.
aerating a green.
And I remember in the debates that Biden and he had, Biden said something about, you said you should we should inject bleach into her, and Trump said, I was being sarcastic. And I just want, if that comes up again in the next debates, we got to play that over and over again, because remember, he wasn't being sarcastic. And you remember Dr. Birx was kind of doing this. During that. And so I would just, if I want Biden to ask them that again if they debate. I hope they do debate, and I want and Trump will say I was being sarcastic again, and then later in the commentary I want to show that clip because she was just.
Yeah, I do think people have made a kind of choice to just block out that period of time from their minds. Like everybody just sort
I
of.
think there is a psychological thing where we've done that, and I think that redounds to Trump's favor because he handled it so badly.
Yeah.
He did get the vaccine going, and
But
but who wouldn't have done that?
Right.
Right.
He didn't stop. He could have even fucked that up, but in that case, he did it. There is a part of this where people want to move past the pandemic. I am partial to the idea that America's carrying around a lot of trauma from that time we haven't really processed, and we're laying it at Biden's feet. Do you think there's truth to that?
Do I think that we're laying the trauma from that period on Biden's
Yes,
feet?
there's some way in which we came out of that pandemic. We never dealt with the grief and the trauma and the experience of it. Biden promised that things would feel better. People don't feel better.
I think we took a psychological toll, and kids took a psychological toll, and we just did. And there's that. I don't think that could have been helped. It could have been handled maybe better, but I think that we paid that toll from it, and maybe Biden is paying a price for that. I just think that we have to remind people that Trump didn't handle it well and didn't get material to people for prevention, and he didn't wear a mask, which was a terrible thing. And there were a lot of people who died unnecessarily because of him.
Yeah. Hey, Al. Do you remember this clip from The Matrix Reloaded?
Hi, you fellas. Upgrades.
No.
Okay. Well, tonight, I didn't think you would. I expected you not to be honest.
Well, I didn't disappoint, did I?
Tonight, we're going to compare old school maniacs versus new school maniacs and decide who is doing it better, which really means doing it worse. Does age come before beauty? Let's find out in a segment we're calling Right-Wing Gremlins, the New Batch. Basically, we have a couple of the classic goons that you catalog here in your book, and we're going to compare them to the new batch of goons and see which of the two you think are worse.
It's a worthy enterprise.
I agree. First up, I'm going to take that at face value and keep on moving.
I meant it. I was very literal. That was exactly what I meant.
We all remember Bill O'Reilly, mad, full of shit. To refresh your recollections, here's Bill O'Reilly from just last week.
I'm not really fearful of our democracy because there isn't anybody more outspoken in this country than I am about politics and other things. And my freedom was not impeded one iota during the Trump administration. And I don't know any broadcaster's freedom who was.
That's an incredible statement.
What did he say?
Such an important question. Now, we're going to put him up against the new batch, Jesse Waters. Here's Jesse Waters insisting that Donald Trump's lack of golf course access is cruel and unusual punishment.
But the guy needs exercise. He's usually golfing. And so you're going to put a man who's almost 80 sitting in a room like this on his butt for all that time? It's not healthy. You know how big of a health nut I am. He needs sunlight, and he needs activity. He needs to be walking around. He needs action. It's really cruel and unusual punishment to make a man do that.
It's an incredible...
I got to agree with him. I do. When he's got time to play golf, this trial has to be tough on him. And let me tell you why. he has to shut up for the all day. It's really, I don't know how he's going to make it through. Too bad. But, yeah.
It's I love that he had to sit there while these prospective jurors are just the prosecutor and the judges, and they're reading these statements that are like, now, is it true that you called the defendant there a fat, ugly piece of shit?
Yes, I did. But can you be unbiased? I think so.
Yeah.
Like, the defense, we'd like to strike her.
So now the question is, who do you think's worse? Is the new batch worse than the old batch? Bill O'Reilly or Jesse Waters? Who's worse?
I don't watch enough Jesse Waters. I studied Bill O'Reilly, and I got to tell you, he's really, really, really bad. But I've got enough of Jesse Waters. Jesse Waters did a thing, I don't know, last week sometime about saying that that some of the jurors who were coming in were pretending to be right wing, or middle of the road when they were really very left wing. You saw that,
Yeah,
thing,
yeah.
right? And then I think Trump posted it on Truth Social, and then that, of course, is attacking the jury, which the judge has got to be thrilled with.
Yeah, it's sort of, in a way, Jesse Waters led Trump to violate the gag order.
Right. So in a way,
He's helping.
yeah.
I think what makes Jesse Waters is a little bit in on the joke, and Bill O'Reilly was never in on the joke.
I agree. Okay.
Next up,
So O'Reilly worse.
O'Reilly worse. Next up, the elected official category. We have first Newt Gingrich. When discussing Proposition 8 in 2008, this was to ban gay marriage. Newt Gingrich told Bill O'Reilly, in fact, this.
I think there is a gay and secular fascism in this country that wants to impose its will on the rest of us, is prepared to use violence, to use harassment.
Sure, but only on fashion. Just fashion. So that's Newt Gingrich. Yeah.
So he's saying that LGBT people are going to be violent?
Yeah, that we're going to impose just on fashion. We're going to impose a kind of gay secular fascist state. I mean,
Why not?
now let's
not?
put up Newt versus Large Marge herself, Marjorie Taylor Greene. The problem with Newt Gingrich, too much nuance. Let's see Marjorie.
The Democrats are a party of pedophiles.
I would definitely say so.
Yeah, she's worse.
Well, here's the
She's worse. Gingrich was very bad. Gingrich taught Republicans how to talk, how to call Democrats traitors and decayed, and he how to talk like Newt is something that's actually in this book, and it really is. He started this whole thing of calling each other, making it impossible for Republicans and Democrats to get along. And he told his new members not to live in Washington, to go back home over the weekend. And it really helped when, senators and congressmen lived in the Washington area, and their kids could be on the same baseball team or soccer team or stuff like that.
Yeah, it's ironic that they spend far less time in D.C. They spend much more time at home, and yet the politics have been nationalized. So they spend more time in their districts, but they spend less time worrying about the kind of local issues that might have created other kinds of coalitions. So it doesn't happen anymore.
And I do think that it hurt the comity between members. If your kid played on another kid on another kid's baseball team, it made a difference.
So I feel like Marjorie Taylor Greene is obviously worse, and yet Newt was smart and effective in a way that she can't be.
She's effective in her own monstrous way,
Right.
but not effective in his monstrous way.
All right. And finally, it's the Cranks Crank category. First up, we've got Ann Coulter, prominent in the book. Ann Coulter once famously said of 9/11 widows, "These broads are millionaires, lionized on TV and in articles about them, reveling in their status as celebrities and stalked by grieferazzis. I've never seen people enjoying their husbands' deaths so much." Just a reminder.
I've heard her say worse.
For sure. And yeah, no, she has, and she will. Versus right-wing internet personality Charlie Kirk, who recently offered this gem.
A lot of them are on birth control too, and birth control really screws up female brains, by the way. Every single one of you need to make sure that your loved ones are not on birth control, and it creates very angry and bitter young ladies and young women. That bitterness then manifests into a political party that is the bitter party. I mean, the Democrat Party is all about bring us your bitterness and, we'll give you free stuff. It's like we'll trade you, bitterness for stuff, essentially. That's like the Democrat Party.
Did you know that birth control turns young women into bitter Democrats?
I did not know that. I did not know that. You learn something here on your show.
No. Yeah, it's because it's entertaining, obviously, but there's information. You leave with more than you came with.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it.
Yes, I did not know that.
So I feel like Charlie,
Thank you for that service.
It's a labor of love. but I do think it's fun when you look at O'Reilly versus Waters or Newt versus Marjorie or Ann versus Charlie. They're not sending their best.
Well, there's no one can beat Ann Coulter at being the worst. So
maybe that's a reason for some optimism. Here we have the new generation, and are they better at this than the previous generation? No, they're not.
No.
Just different.
Yeah.
Some of them are worse.
Look, I'm not sure we're the best judge. The best judge are the people who consume this stuff. They're the ones to tell us.
All right, we'll ask them. So you're on the road. You're doing a tour.
Yeah, I'm doing a tour I'm developing an act. I'm going to different city wineries around the country and doing a tour.
So you write these books. They are important to a lot of young people. They shape a lot of people's way of thinking about politics. You run for Senate. You spend those years in the Senate. What do you want your impact to be now? Would you think about running again?
Probably not. I'd like to have an impact. I have a leadership PAC where I raise money for Democrats who are running all over the country, and we're target the key races in the country, and spend a lot of the money on ground game.
All right, good.
Yeah.
Senator Al Franken, thank you so much for being here. Really good to see you.
Thank you.